Lovely. Welcome everybody to the Festival of Wesak. Very important festival that is celebrated by Buddhists and people of many different faiths, and especially those who follow the esoteric or ancient wisdom teachings, because they realize the significance of today. Wesak is a festival when we can be open and receptive to the energies of two of the great avatars that we have known on this planet. And that is the Buddha, symbolizing enlightenment through light of the mind and illumination, and also the energies of the Christ, who came to enlightenment through love and the heart. And at one particular time in the whole year, these two great beings bring their energies together, and there's a synthesis of these energies that Ted's going to talk about in more detail. And it's said that these energies come close to the earth so that they are available to those who open and are receptive to them. Many people travel to the Wesak Valley in the Himalayas, and I'll show you a picture of that quite soon, where they gather to experience this energy and this great event that happens right on the Taurus full moon every year. So it's a time of great illumination and opportunity to especially anchor profound spiritual energies down into humanity and to bring them down into matter. And people all over the world open to those energies, and those potent energies come through. And it's almost like anchoring the energies for the year to come. So the year was set, or the fiery will arrived in Aries, and in Taurus we start to anchor this energy. So the keynote for the Wesak festival for the Taurus full moon is I see, and when the eye is opened, all is light. And it's talking very much about not the physical eyes, but the third eye, the illumination that comes, and the intuitive understanding and knowing that comes through that illumination, through the Ajna center here. So there is an opening of that intuitive understanding, sometimes called pure reason, that comes, but it's a knowing. So this is the potential for this coming year. It's also the potential, both individually and collectively, for us to transmute the lower desire nature of the personality and lift it up to the fiery aspirations of the soul energy. And a lot of people go through a preparatory few days before Wesak, and then the few days afterward. Again, there's time for contemplation on your own life and what you can do to make a difference on the wider picture. So Taurus being very much about how we live our lives, and Ted will expand on that, but this is a time of year when it is quite pertinent to look at how we are living, both individually and collectively. And I think you would agree that the times we're in at the moment are really bringing that up for our attention. It's a sacred time. I want to just talk a little bit about the Buddha's life. For those who might not be so aware about his life, I won't talk in a lot of detail, but he was actually born on the date of Wesak. That's his birthday, if you like. He was born, it was predicted that a great being, spiritual being, would be born. He was born into a family of privilege and wealth, and he had a fine education. And then he eventually got to the stage where he renounced this life of privilege and wealth and went out into the world and was determined to become an ascetic monk. His desire, he said he wished to become a Buddha, and he aspired to this, and he wanted to save the world. Now, he was tempted, the stories you can read, he was tempted and tested many times before eventually he faced his demons. He faced his dweller on the threshold, if you like. And it said that as he was sitting meditating, deeper meditation under the Bodhi tree, he reached enlightenment through illumination of the mind, of light. And he was the first being, the first human being on earth to reach enlightenment through this path. And that is why his teachings are so revered and are so significant. And what I want to show you is just a brief, really brief, oh, this is what I want. Now, can you all see that? So to be a Buddha is said to come to a place of body or wisdom. So this is an ideal state of intellectual and ethical perfection, which can be achieved by man through purely human means. So this was a normal man who, similar to the story of the Christ, is born into different circumstances, but nevertheless showed us through the way they lived their life that this enlightenment, this state of being fully realized, is possible. So a Buddha is an enlightened one, a knower. And he came up with 4 noble truths. And these truths were that life means suffering. And when he said life, he means life in the material world. So if you focus on the personality and the material world, you will have a life of suffering. And the cause of this suffering is our desires, and our attachments. But he said that this suffering can cease when we eliminate the causes. So when we learn to raise desire to aspiration, and we learn to work from a detached way in our life, so that we're working from the soul, not the personality ego that's very attached to things. And that the way to do this, the way to end the suffering and lift up out of desire and attachment, was through the Noble Eightfold Path. And so many people in the world really find Buddhism a very practical way of understanding spirituality. It focuses on the mind, but very much the mind, whenever I have gone to Buddhist teachings, when they say the mind, they point here to their chest. It's about the thinking in the heart. So it's not about the intellectual mind at all. It's about the buddhi, which is part of the higher self, or the higher triangle, if you like. So the Noble Eightfold Path was to practice right view. So this is in terms of your perspective and how you view things, view the world. Right intention, and intention comes from a heart. It's from your heart center. Right speech, so impeccable with your word. Right conduct. Right livelihood, so find your way in the world that aligns with your soul. Right effort. Right mindfulness, being in the present moment and awake and aware, consciously living. And right samadhi. So samadhi is the state of consciousness when you experience complete union. You might experience this in a deeply meditative state. And he goes on, I mean, there's endless Buddhist teaching. There's 10 virtuous qualities and all sorts of wonderful teachings. But this man, when he was still in incarnation and still had the vibrational energy of a man, made a huge difference to humanity, as did his brother, the Christ. And the Christ, we're probably in the West more aware of his story and the fundamental values of Christianity, or should I say the teachings of the Christ. We're probably more aware of the heart Christ consciousness than we are necessarily aware of the teachings of the Buddha. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of an insight there. So I'm going to hand over to Ted now. And if I unmute you, and I will get your next slide up. So you should be unmuted now, Ted.
Yeah, I've just seen the message, yeah.
So that's the picture that you sent me of the Wesak.
The Wesak Valley blessing, yes.
Yes, yes, you can see the pilgrims here.
And the initiates in the foreground in the 5-pointed star.
The initiates,
and the masters in there as well, those in physical form, yeah.
Yep, yep.
And it is a physical ceremony that takes place every year. It's not a commemoration or a remembrance. It is a physical ceremony.
Yes. Because people join it not just, I mean, you don't have to go to the Wesak Valley to join that ceremony. Many of you may have joined it today by just sitting in meditation during that sort of 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after the full moon.
Okay.
Right. I will. Do you want to talk to the chart first?
Did you manage to find the Lucis Trust sheet? No,
I didn't. I'm sorry.
I'll just start with this one in that case. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Do you want to, I just carry on now?
Yes, you go for it.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And pleased to be able to give you some commentary on what is the most important spiritual festival in the calendar, for the reasons I hope become clear as I talk through this. But the astrology really is second place here tonight, but I thought I would show the chart so people can understand what happens at a full moon. This is the transit chart at 11:45 this morning. It's placed in London. The Winchester or Wrexham, it would have been very similar, but it's set for London. And we can see here that it is the sun that is in Taurus. That circle right at the top there that Teresa's gone to there with the cursor, that's the sun in Taurus. And of course, if a baby is born on a day like today, they will be sun sign Taurus. But we call it the Taurus full moon, and the Taurus full moon is right in the bottom of the chart, directly opposite, 180 degrees opposite. And there's the moon in the sign of Scorpio, right next to, at 17 degrees, conjunct to the Earth. And this is why the light is at its maximum. And not only is there no planets in the way of the vertical axis between the sun's light, which of course the moon reflects, and the moon itself, there is no distance at all or no hindrance to the moonlight being picked up by the Earth. And this is why, if there's cloudless nights like there was last night and into this morning, we can get some beautiful images of the full moon. And really, that's all that sheet is meant to do, to show you that the sun in Taurus is in opposition to the moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio itself has some ray energies which I may be able to discuss as well, and the Earth is conjunct the moon at this particular time. And so if we can move to that sheet, thank you. And to say that I think when Teresa sent out the email, there would have been a note about the Wesak festival from the Lucis Trust. Now, this is for your information going forward, because there are the monthly meetings. And also, if you care to Google and then log in to them, you can get all the exact times of the full moons, and you can get the narratives of the meetings even if you don't hear the meeting as well. Now, I'm just going to quote a little bit from the narrative of the first sheet before I take my own journey from it. We talk about here the period of waiting activity that takes place in the center where the will of God is known. Now, as we progress spiritually, we become aware of increasingly higher vibrations. And it is said that the highest vibration is in the center where the will of God is known, which has the name Shambhala, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. But what is happening is that there is a huge planetary evolution going on, with humanity interacting, whether consciously or unconsciously, the spiritual hierarchy of love and wisdom working as the spiritual hierarchy, with Christ, the Christ energy, as the head of that spiritual hierarchy, and the center Shambhala, where the will of God is known. And we sometimes in the Lord's Prayer quite glibly say, thy will be done. It isn't our will, but we have the opportunity at Wesak to align our will with planetary will if we can understand and identify with the energies involved. And as an esoteric astrologer, I first had to be very well versed in the esoteric psychology that is a peculiar feature of esoteric astrology. And esoteric psychology, of course, is the science of the 7 rays. And I know a number of people who are spending most of their afternoons this week and next week listening to webinars by Michael Robbins, who founded the University of the 7 Rays in America. So it's becoming rapidly exoteric. It's not quite as esoteric, this astrology, as it was when Alice Bailey wrote about it, having been overshadowed by her second ray master, Raj Kool. And so we have an opportunity to participate in the evolution of this planet through an understanding of Wesak full moon. And that's why I particularly wanted to talk to you today, because this is something that I've been involved in for several years now, having got my own understanding of it, being Sun in Taurus and Venus in Taurus as well, Venus shining a light. It was always meant that I should understand, as my spiritual maturity grew, an understanding of the whole process. And it has been indicated to me, and I smile, that once we consider this process, there isn't anything else. This is it. We're going from the personality to the soul to the monad, to the spark of the divine within the divine flame. But we're not doing it for selfish reasons. We're doing it because we are attempting to find ourselves a furrow that we can plow for humanity. And at the same time, even with self-forgetfulness, we will be able to raise our own vibrations and therefore redeem ourselves. And Teresa alluded to this in her opening introduction there, that this is part of our evolution, but we don't do it for that reason. We do it because we feel we want to be fulfilled and encompassed by the whole spiritual trinity. And here it is laid out for you in my third handout. So 3 major qualities as I see them. And of course, they link beautifully with the great invocation which Teresa uses in the meditation group that belongs to her and that you're part of and that I'm part of now as well. The great invocation where we say, let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And of course, man has become severed from his spiritual understanding, and we do have to find our way back. And so if we take the third of those, light, love, power, my first bullet point there is empowerment. It's connected to the will of Shambhala. It's the first aspect, and the being involved, and it's mentioned here in the talk to be presented by Lucis Trust, the Lord of the world. And when we look into this and we find out that there's a spiritual family dedicated to the redemption of humanity called the Kumaras, and we learn of the input and the initiatory rod of Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara doesn't come into our consciousness or us into his consciousness until we are initiated for the 3rd time. And once we have passed successfully the 3rd initiation, there is a direct understanding of the work of the Lord of the world. Now, this beam of will energy is focused by the Buddha into a form of light, the intelligence or mind. The third aspect is the Buddha, because the 7 rays work along 2 lines. There's the will line, 1, 3, 5, and 7, the odd numbers, and the love line, which is 2, 4, 6, and the Christ is on ray 2. And so we have the purpose explained in terms of illumination and the mind, and we're not talking about intellect here, it's the intelligent mind that can use and understand the illumination that the Buddha is trying to focus. And then this is blended with the heart. And I've tried to show this here, not as a triangle, but more as a downflow of energy. And I've referred to them all as lights here, but we have there the entire spiritual trinity. And we may know it more if we're Theosophists as Atma, Buddhi, Manas, where Atma is the light of life, Buddhi is the light of love, and Manas is the light of mind. And it seems that only the Shambhala force, this red downward light of life stream of energy, because it is electric fire as opposed to the heart which works with solar fire, can charge and galvanize. And it does that as well as blending, because again, in the yoga that Teresa will teach, we have to fuse the heart chakra's output ultimately with the Ajna chakra. And the heart is love and Ajna is wisdom, related of course to the light aspect that we're talking about here. Love, wisdom, the second ray. There is a fusion there that is required, and this fusion is those bottom 2 lines that we've just been talking about, the light of love and the light of mind. But that can mean we have a very dedicated and devoted individual who is kind and compassionate, who has mercy and empathy. But the need for the light of life is to galvanize that into, well, it's changing the goodwill that's in the heart into the will to good. And this is completing the picture. There may be many individuals who are waiting yet for the touch of the electric fire to come down into their consciousness. It's called in the literature the light that shocks, and it can give it, and we can get it through a trauma. And by God, we're shocked. We've lost a loved one. We've found ourselves at a cul-de-sac on our spiritual path after 20 years, and we have to change. And it's major to our consciousness. And that shock brings about a reorientation, and or it helps to fuse the light of love and the light of mind. So the bullet point underneath the 3 energies is the Shambhala fire fuses and blends the energy strands of hierarchical love and humanity's active intelligence. And the new group of world servers is on that strand between the hierarchy and humanity. And what that means is there are a number of people in humanity who are consciously or unconsciously working for hierarchy, and they too require their empowerment from the first ray aspect of the light of life. This is dealt with in Alice Bailey's book, particularly the rays and the initiations. So the spiritual purpose that comes through the will of the light of life has to be infused in what many of us have already developed, and that is that blend, or on the way to developing, that is that blend of heart and mind, or as Teresa referred to it, the thinking mind. We have to have some almost phallic energy to inject into our soft and kind spiritual nature. It's like putting an iron fist into the beautiful soft glove that we've already embroidered of the heart energy. And so spiritual purpose on this planet is to serve intelligently with a loving and impersonal heart in accordance with divine purpose. And therefore we need to understand more about the will to good, because we may be doing some good on the planet, but could we be doing a greater good? Is there some, and this light of life will give us the electrical charge to sometimes alter our path and put us in the new way of working and being. The aim of the Wesak full moon, therefore, is to make available the light of life, this Shambhala force, to assist us in infusing our daily human actions and interactions, which we already work on with a deep, loving, motivated by the Christ principle, which is at the heart of each and every one of us. And so our own understanding of the soul does depend on our understanding or our demonstration of the Christ impulse, as Rudolf Steiner will call it, or the Christ principle, as I prepare to call it, as again Teresa related to, separate from the religion of Christianity. This is what the Christ energy stood for, and this is what vivifies our soul. But the next stage of the journey, only indicated at the Wesak full moon, is to bring down the fire of the monad through Shambhala and the Lord of the world. And our need may be to perhaps aspire further than the soul, to understand that Sanat Kumara is waiting with his initiatory rods for each and every one of us when we reach that mountaintop, which is how I've tried to show it there, of transfiguration, where we don't want things for the separated self or the inverted triangle of personality. We're ready to give our hearts in service for humanity. And then we need the extra guidance or the touch of electricity. And that's from a very personal point of view. And I must relate this also to my talk a couple of weeks ago and say that the two planets which represent this light of life and Shambhala force are Pluto and Vulcan. And both of those planets are involved in that particular conglomeration of conjuncted planets. Pluto is the destroyer aspect and will seek, as we're already seeing today, to attempt to destroy those parts of human civilization, because this is working for the planet, remember. This is the Lord of the world, Sanat Kumara, sometimes referred to as the planetary logos, if you like, the will of God for this planet. And if Pluto is involved, as I've attempted to show a couple of weeks ago, and with what's been given out on the subject, then we should look carefully and see what exactly is being destroyed. Is it the crazy rush hour? Is it the pollution of the planet? And we should be mindful that this is the planetary will working out in its expression. And therefore we should try to understand that, you know, what is happening is for the betterment of the planet. We may not fully understand it because we're not fully aligned yet with the energy of the light of life or the Shambhala impact. But for us also, the other planet, and the only other planet, because consciousness is the second ray aspect, cannot deal with the first ray aspect constructively, but Vulcan can. And Vulcan is the planet which brings down the planetary will in a creative sense. And you know, it shows beautifully in taking the space that the rubble has that's been caused by Pluto. In that rubble there will be a space for Vulcan to weave its good work. And I can only tell you this from my own life, and it's very personal, that when my moon passed over Pluto, and I didn't know all of what I'm talking to you about now, in 1997, and my first wife and partner of 18 years died suddenly, Pluto destroyed the relationship. But because I have Vulcan trine, which is favorable to Pluto in my chart, the Vulcan then took over in the ensuing months. I met Douglas Baker, I set on a spiritual path, I learned the esoteric psychology and the esoteric astrology, and 23 years later have grown tremendously in my understanding of spiritual matters. And therefore it can be tough to deal with the first ray of will and power. And Teresa, she won't mind me saying, has a soul which vibrates particularly to the first ray of will and power, and it will isolate. It will leave you climbing on the mountain, and then it will send a rain cloud on top of you to soak you entirely, even as if the journey wasn't tough enough. But by God, if we can get that persistence, the Taurian persistence, this is the sun in Taurus, we should be able to complete the journey to the rod of initiation that Sanat Kumara is handing to us when we get to the mountaintop. And I think probably I could finish with something which I was researching not so long ago, which kind of sums up the whole process before we start our meditation. And I've written this down. It was given to me at the lecture many years ago by the Lucis Trust. They did seminars on the reappearance of the Christ. And in that, they talked about Christ being the dispenser of the water of life. And it is pointed out in that book that we become that water of life, and I'm talking about the light of life here, to the extent that we have identified with the soul or the Christ in us. And this question of identification is everything. Everything is about identification. When we disidentify as a personality, we start to re-identify as a soul. And when we even start to disidentify as a soul, we can re-identify as a spirit. And that's moving from humanity into hierarchy and into Shambhala. And that's the journey for all of us that is offered by Wesak. It gives the complete picture. And so that when we are serving, we are that water which is poured forth to thirsty men, which is what is promised at the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And this is very important because Aquarius is linked to the planet Uranus, and Uranus has first ray energy. In other words, my understanding of the age of Aquarius is it's not just going to be about the brotherhood of man and all the beauty of the second ray that is exemplified through Teresa and her work at our level, and through the Christ at his level, and of course the whole of the spiritual hierarchy. It's about the touch of electricity that is going to galvanize us, and therefore it's going to be not just the brotherhood of souls, but the brotherhood of spirit. Now, Wesak is a ceremony where through the combined action of hierarchy, blue, second aspect, and Shambhala in particular, first aspect, red, these waters are charged. In other words, we are plugged into that great electrical current that lies behind all consciousness, second aspect, and all form, third aspect, i.e. our batteries are filled with the invincible fire of being. You know, when we're serving, we're doing, but we have to note that at some point we have to also understand the peace of Shambhala. At the very center is Venus or being. That fire, as I've already indicated, will reveal to us the next phase of our work when it touches us, our work in the world, at the same time providing us with the power and the Taurian persistence to carry it through into full expression. And so, to return to where I started, we are attempting to become willing and conscious cooperators with the great evolutionary process at work for this planet. It's happening anyway, but in understanding Wesak, we are putting up our hands to say, we'd like to be part of this process, and we're willing to take our consciousness on to the next level and to embrace, and the changes that come with it, an empowerment from the first aspect. And at that time, we will need both inspiration and courage, because in order to do this, we have to release ourselves from our, Douglas Baker expression, grimy rags, those old ideas, identifications, and possessions that we know we've outgrown really, but we still tend to, because of habit, we cling to them. So may we stand together naked in front of our souls in the great waterfall of spirit that is particularly available to us through cycle, through this time of the year, now in our time-space awareness at this festival of revelatory light that is Wesak.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So if people have questions, which I imagine you probably do, because there was a lot there, we'll save them for just after we stop for the NHS clap, and we'll address those after 8 o'clock. So what I'd like to do now is go into the meditation. So if you get yourself comfortable with your back reasonably upright. Now, people all around the world today have been working individually but connecting. They've been working in groups, but it's almost a day of unification, Wesak, because so many different people, not just Buddhists, but so many different people come together. So what I want you to do is I want you to connect not just with this group and with the people who are watching the recordings, but I want you to imagine that we are connecting with all people who are working in this way. And there are just thousands and thousands of them, be assured of that. So before we begin the actual meditation, I would just like to say together the affirmation of love, to bring ourselves into our hearts and to connect collectively through that heart energy. So either silently or aloud, if we just repeat the affirmation of love. So in the center of all love, I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Now gently close your eyes. And I want to simply ground our energy. So imagine that you are sending roots down into the earth, either through your feet or through your base chakra. Allow your body to relax. And just coming into this present moment. So just notice your body sitting on the chair. Notice the clothes on your skin. The only moment that we have a choice to change is the present moment. Now just notice any sounds. Allow them to come into your awareness. Now take that noticing, that awareness to your breath. And just watching the breath come into your body and watching the breath leave. Keeping a gentle focus on the breath, allowing that breath to go a little deeper each time. Feeling your body relaxing and coming into a beautiful alignment with the mind through the breath. Keep a gentle focus on your breath. And if your mind becomes distracted, as it will, as soon as you notice, just come back to the breath. Come back with loving kindness. I want you to bring your focus to the center of your chest and imagine you're breathing into your heart center. And with each breath, there is a feeling of expansion. As you breathe, you can imagine a beautiful lotus bud that slowly opens. And as it opens, it reveals 6 perfectly formed, beautiful petals. And at the center of that lotus, there is a beautiful emerald crystal. And just continue with this feeling that you are opening and expanding from the very center of your heart. Let that feeling of expansion and opening encompass your whole physical body. Now I want you to imagine that this feeling of opening is occurring in the very crown of your head. And you are opening to the higher inspiration and illumination of your higher self or your soul. And I want you to imagine light pouring down through the crown of your head, down through the major energy centers, but especially into your heart, so that the heart acts as a vessel for this light of illumination. You can imagine it as a white light or a gold light or a violet purple light. Now, keeping a gentle focus on the breath, I want you to open up so that you feel completely receptive to whatever this light brings. Keep a gentle focus on the breath, but with this intention to open. And as you fill with light, I want you to imagine that as a group we are opening to this illumination, to this light of understanding, this light of life. This light that is so potent at the moment, allow it to come through. Be open. If your mind is distracted, just bring it back to the breath. And now as you fill with light, physically allow the light to flow out into the energy field or the aura that surrounds your physical body in all directions. So light is pouring in and starting to radiate out from your heart out into your aura, filling your home with light. Now feel the light flowing out to fill your street in your neighborhood. Allow the light to flow out to fill the town or the city that you live in, so that you are acting as a channel for this light. You are attracting this light and then radiating it out for the good of all. Now imagine that you connect with your brothers and sisters in this meditation and in all groups that are meditating in this way at this time. And as we continue to radiate out that light together, we can fill this nation with light. We can fill this part of the world with light. We allow it to radiate out to fill this whole hemisphere with light. And eventually to fill the entire world with light. So we are not alone. There are many groups working with the light of Wesak, with this illuminarity coming through. See our planet surrounded by this light of the most potent vibration. This will to good. See the light infused with the love of the Christ consciousness. And as these lights come together, there is a synergistic action. And see this amazing force, this fire, flowing down into the hearts and minds of all who are receptive, lifting the vibration of individual men and women, of groups, of those in positions of government and power, decision makers, of teachers, of healers, of all those working for the good of humanity, for all those working to preserve our planet, the wildlife, the plants, the ecosystems. Continue to be a channel for this light as we work together in this way. See groups all over the world doing the same. See the balance restored in nature. The air is clean and fresh. The water is pure and clear. We have a healthy ozone layer and our planet is healing. See all the animal and plant life flourishing. And see men finding their own unique way to serve and make a difference. To find their part in the divine plan. See this light bringing peace, goodwill, and right relations within each individual man and between all men and all nations. Lifting our awareness, lifting our collective consciousness so that we can move to living in peace and harmony with all. We can embrace the change that the energies of the Taurus Wesak full moon make available to us. Hold this energy, hold a space for the light within you and let it radiate out. Let it join with others. You are light. You are love. And when the will directs this light and love, there is nothing that is not possible when groups of people come together and work in this way. We are envisaging a future and bringing it into the present. Continue to allow the light to flow through you and radiate out from your heart. Now, holding your mind steady in the light, gently open your eyes and you'll see on your screen the great invocation. And today is a powerful day for groups to come together and repeat the great invocation. It's almost the day it has the most effect. So let's say it from your heart, with your will, with all the passion and love you have for humanity in this planet. So say it either silently or out loud, but say it with conviction. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, Let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you. Namaste. We're going to have a brief pause here while so that you can go and clap for the NHS and show your support for all the work that they do. So I'll see you back in a few moments. Well, welcome back. And I'd just like to start this sort of chat, question and answer session with an observation myself. Every month at the full moon, I seem to be very sensitive to energy, and in the couple of days beforehand, there's always a rising feeling of tension. And I've learned to relax into that tension. It used to frighten me. Wouldn't sleep very well, and there'd be this sense of something coming, of an increasing tension. And now I know, because I understand more, I know that that tension is a positive tension, because it's the kind of friction that brings about change. Now, this Wesak full moon, I would say that that tension, from my experience, was heightened. Definitely. And I was on Facebook, and people who probably don't sort of look at this stuff were sort of saying, what is going on at the moment? I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling agitated. I'm feeling a tension. I can't sleep. What is going on? So I think increasingly people are becoming aware of these energies, and that something very, very profound is going on around the full moon, and maybe even that something very profound is going on, especially this full moon. And I know when I was in the meditation for that half hour or so in the middle of the day today for Wesak, the energy was incredible. Incredible. I mean, I get a quite a bad headache. There's so much energy pours down through my head. And when we go into things like that, it's something that you have to surrender to. It could be frightening, or you could just surrender and trust and say, okay, this is okay. So that's my experience of the full moon energies. I don't know if anybody else has an experience, but I just thought I'd share that, because I think sometimes people don't know what's going on, and they wonder what's happening to them, and just to know that it's just all part of it, and it is something that we just surrender to, and then it's okay. It's quite fine. In fact, then you can surrender to the very profound sort of understandings it brings, personally and sort of collectively. So I wanted to just reassure people, if anyone's feeling that sort of tension, it's okay. It will ease off the next day or so. And then it'll be back again at the new moon. But that's how it goes. And we talked a bit about that last week. So I want to open up to you all, and I'll make sure that you can unmute your. So if you want to speak, just unmute your microphone. You can now unmute it yourself and ask any questions of either myself or Ted, and we'll do our best to answer them. Or if you've got any observations, perhaps your experience. I don't know if many of you managed to sort of meditate in the middle of the day today, for around the time of the full moon. I think. You're all very quiet.
Yes,
Go for it.
I very nearly missed it.
Come a bit closer.
Yeah, I very nearly missed 11:45, and I suddenly panicked and realised it was about 37 minutes to. So I very quickly sat down, but I was so surprised for me how quickly I could get into it. Because normally I need to take my time, but I just sat down and straight away I could feel it. And it was more profound than usual.
Yeah.
Which I was so pleased, because I thought, I'm missing it. And that feeling went straight away.
Yeah.
And I felt so much peace from it.
Yeah.
And joy. And my hands kept coming up somehow, as though I was kind of holding the world or something. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
But I was completely exhausted afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I loved it, and I don't know, I hope I'll be able to achieve that another time, because it was different.
Yes.
To how it normally is for me. And
to be honest, the probably the reason was because you surrendered, because you weren't sitting there expecting anything. You were like, right, okay. But it is a profound, if you can just be open to it.
That really surprised me, because I thought, I'm just going to be sitting here thinking, what's going on? Why am I doing this? And just straight away, it was there. It was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for the reminder, which, even though I thought about it earlier, nearly missed it. But yeah,
wonderful.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
Lovely. Thank you, Linda. And it is really good to hear that. I've been involved in a lot of group meditations for a lot of years. And sometimes the energy when you come together in a group can be quite almost overwhelming. And you can imagine there are so many people who are meditating at the Wesak and right on the full moon. So people, no matter what time it is, anywhere in the world, they will be meditating and opening. It's almost opening for all of us. And we talked about that last week when we said, the 15% who can raise their vibration are holding that energy for the other 85%. And really that was what was happening today. And so you can have quite profound experiences here. Yeah. Now, does anyone have any questions for myself or for Ted? I've lost Ted. Oh, there he is. Oh, let me unmute you.
Yeah. Hello?
Ron. Ted, did you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me make an observation following on from your point. I lost your connection for a few minutes there, about this first ray energy. It comes in from the planetary center Shambhala, and it's not discriminatory. And people can suffer with an inability to handle the energy that you were talking about in the first instance. Some people can handle it and some people can't. And it's one of the reasons why in spiritual development, we have to be able to, first of all, handle the energy of our own personal, private personality lives and issues. So it might be family, it might be money, it might be relationships, it might be what we're doing with our time, or we may have enemies or whatever. We have to deal with all those things. That's dealing with energy. And then on top of that, we get the first ray energy of the situation with the virus and the destruction of certain forms of consciousness that we are familiar with. And then we get the energy of Wesak on top of all that. So I think at the moment people are being bombarded with an energy which they're not quite sure how or if they can handle. Yeah. And what we have to do is, as you say, accept it and not be driven to anything in the outer world. We need to try and absorb it in our being.
Yes, and I think a lot of people, and it's probably why people are so quiet tonight, a lot of people around the full moon, there is almost an instinctive retreat. You feel you want to retreat, and you do retreat. And maybe, I mean, in my diary, I've got to the point now where I leave the day of the full moon pretty well as empty as I can, with as few commitments as I can, because I know I will need that time. And I quite often will spend quite a bit of time out in nature or walking or something where I'm connected to the whole flow of energy, but I'm not having demands made on me in the outer world, because I'm spending my time inward. And that can become, since I've done that, I've found the time of the full moon to be quite an enlightening time personally. Just you start to understand things, and things start to make sense. You have realizations about things at that time more than any other. So it's an opportunity. And like you said, given we have Taurus, Wesak, and all the major change that's going on in our planet at the moment as well, we've got a lot of profound and potent energy coming through.
I think also people get bombarded with energy without actually knowing what that energy is. And it's probably worth pointing out here that whilst every full moon offers an energy which will create attention for many people, as you've alluded to, the energy of the next full moon at Gemini is one predominantly of love, wisdom. And we're not going to be hit with first ray energy at every full moon. You know, we're going to go through the gamut of the 7 rays, and each astrological sign has its energy complement. It just so happens with this one, we get the whole lot. And that's why, you know, it is such a tough one in many ways, but it mustn't put people off the full moon meditation.
Oh, no.
Because you know, Christ has now received this energy, and it's said that a lot of the energy, if we're able to distribute it ourselves, we can, but it's held now by the Christ until the next full moon, which is in fact Gemini. It is the full moon of the Christ. So we're going to see love, wisdom, and no first ray in it either to any noticeable extent. So there will be energy, but it will be gentler, because we have another stage to go with it. So we get the charging up, we get frazzled, but then we're allowed to calm while we decide what to do with that energy.
That's right. And that's going to come beautifully. Also, the Gemini festival is almost going to be the time where our nation and many nations are coming out of this crisis and starting to enact the changes and starting to make the heart love, wisdom decisions. Yeah. People will be deciding, how much of my old life am I keeping and what am I changing? Some people will just want to go straight back to normal. Other people will be more reflective about that. And so that is all coming about. It's perfect timing, really.
Yeah.
One could even think there was a grand design, which we know there is.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And I think also the thing that when that energy comes through, and what Linda alluded to, when you know, you're in a hurry and you sit down and you feel that energy, it gives you hope. because what it does is it says we're not on our own. Mankind may have got ourselves into a pickle, and we may not be doing the best job with regard to this planet and the animals and the plant kingdoms, but we're not on our own here. There are some profound beings who've moved on to vibrations and energies far beyond what we can even comprehend, and they are helping us. They're helping through individuals, through groups, and through the whole energizing of that energy field around our planet, and they are helping us, and they're in it for the long haul. They're in it until mankind reaches a stage where everyone is like the Buddha, when all of mankind have reached that stage of enlightenment. And that's a long haul. So, you know, we're not on our own, and that's not even, you know, each individual person has their own guides. They have their own angels in the Diva kingdom. We are really helped in so many ways. And I think if we can, as soon as the fear comes up, we can just remember, this is all part of a plan. Show me my part. What can I do? Open up, show me what you want me to do. What's my part in this? And your soul will let you know. It will let you know. It won't come written as instructions in English with bullet points. It'll come in feelings. It'll be a pull in a certain direction, and know that that direction isn't right. It might come in pictures and symbols that mean things to you. It comes in serendipitous things and coincidences. Why do I keep seeing this same theme recurring? Why are these things happening to me? And when you start, when you open to that inquiry in your mind, you'll be amazed what you can puzzle out and put together and realize. And it is a beautiful process. It really is. Oh, Michael, let's unmute you.
Just to expand on what Teresa's saying there, this is a perfect time to meditate and reflect. Because of all this surplus of energy, everybody is far more clairvoyant. The planes are much closer to Earth. And so if people want to meditate on their direction or how they can help, now is an absolutely perfect time to do it. And I think one of the reasons why people are slightly disorientated is because they're probably 10% more clairvoyant or 10% more psychic, and they're trying to incorporate that into their consciousness. But this is a good time to assimilate it and see where raising your vibration is actually taking you.
Mm. Mm. And to be honest, it takes some courage, you know, like any major expansion. It takes some courage, because, you know, the safest to stay where you are. Courage is to move into the unknown. And so, yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are probably it's easier for people who are pursuing the ancient wisdom and who have got a seeker's mind and want to understand, because at least they've got some concepts to pull down and give this some grounding and understanding. Whereas some people, there'll be people in the world who have no idea about any of this, who are quite affected by energies, and they won't know what's going on. But their souls, if they're listening, will draw them. They'll bring them to like-minded. They'll bring them with perfect synchronicity to the right opportunities to find the right information, to follow their path. And it does, you look back, you don't see the beauty of your path until you look back. And I once, a psychic healer once said to me, Teresa, some people have a spiritual path mapped out for this lifetime, and they've just got to get on the path and then they're fine. He said, you've got one of the most difficult ones, because the next stepping stone doesn't appear until you step onto it, and you have to step out into the unknown and the stone will appear. And so you build the bridge with each step. The bridge is not open clear to you. And so I suppose in some ways that has meant that I'm not afraid to just step out. because I know the stepping stone appears when I do.
That's the true meaning of faith, if you think about it.
Yes. Yes.
You have to believe that you're going to be taken care of.
Yep.
And your faith will be rewarded.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my experience, you are. And in a way that you could not ever have imagined.
That is true.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I think the point about courage, Teresa, very, very important, because when we're taken out of our comfort zone by life, with being impounded by this energy that can shock, we have to develop courage in order to get through the set of circumstances. And people frequently don't want to have to do that, but they usually do find that inner reserve. But it may be latent. And the reason that the first ray energy is there is to stimulate the change of direction that you say, that, you know, and it's been talked about, and the faith that you have to make that step. It still needs courage. It's still, but that's a heart quality, and
yes.
it's part of the development of love wisdom to be able to say, I don't fear, because then you can face your dweller and whatever elements of the dweller life may be throwing up for you as well. In other words, the dispelling of fear.
That's right. That's exactly right. And really, I remember, well, from the teachings in the Course in Miracles, which aligns with the Christ consciousness, with the Christ teaching, there is the axiom, there is only love. There is only two states you can ever be in. You're either in love, or there's an absence of love, and we call that fear and all its manifestations. So in any given moment, your whole being, your mind, your consciousness is either in love or in fear. You can't, the two cannot coexist. You can't be a little bit scared and a wee bit in the energy of love. It's one or the other. And so when we're in fear, it's finding that return to a place of love. And courage is the stepping stone that allows us to, you know, it's feel the fear and do it anyway. Courage is what allows us to step from fear back to that place, because love, the love is connection. So whenever we feel love, whenever, that is a connection. So that connection with your own soul, with your own higher self, that connection with other people, that connection when we went out and clapped just now, my neighbors are all waving at each other and finding out how everyone's getting on. In neighborhoods, you can hear all the clapping throughout Chester when I go outside. So that is all connecting us. That is returning to love, and that will dispel fear, because when you have love, there is no fear. Does that help? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Everybody feeling a bit contemplative. Right, well, maybe that's a good time to leave this evening. Thank you very much, Ted. That was really good. And what I would say is, anybody got any sort of really in-depth questions and things for Ted, you can always contact me.
Directly, absolutely, yes. Yeah. Yes, I would welcome them. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And otherwise, please enjoy this energy. This time. We are living in a special time, and as someone once said to me, there were souls queuing up to incarnate in this time. So well done. You know, we made it down to the school for souls at this time, and we're here to make a difference. So this is a time to open up and find out just what your path is, how you contribute to that divine plan, and how you make a difference. So good luck with that one. And thank you. Have a nice rest of your evening. Namaste.
Namaste.